Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Future Tech podcast series. It's me, Charlie Sell. I'm the Group MD of Arrows Group. And this podcast series is focused for all you STEM graduates out there. It's where we're speaking to CTOs, CIOs, thought leaders within the technology space, finding out a bit more about their story, thoughts on emerging technologies, and of course, words of wisdom and advice for the graduates out there who are soon to graduate. So great pleasure to have Steve Homan with me today. Steve's the CTO at MetaPack. MetaPack's a hardcore e-commerce company at the heart of technology and has had a really impressive track record, especially over the last couple of years. So keen to find out. Welcome, Steve. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
Good. And you're in Tunbridge Wells at the moment, aren't you? We were just talking about your pending move to Poole.
Yes. Moving back to the beach, embrace my love of surfing again.
Yeah.
Which I'm rubbish at, but I love doing.
I think like many of us out there, isn't it? Our sports are our passions, but fantastic. So let's jump straight in. Let's find out a bit more about you and your background.
So I'm currently CTO at MetaPack, and I've done a number of things, but which all sound very different, but actually all have the same DNA, which is I love a big challenge. I love something that someone tells me is too hard or impossible or super difficult or broken. And my job at the moment is we sit between 500 of the biggest retailers, 500 of the biggest carriers, and we facilitate delivery through telling you when you can get goods and services on the retailer's website, intelligently giving them labels, which says this is when we could send it to Charlie, this is the smartest way to do it, and then tracking. So you've actually most people will have had our products in their house, but just don't know it.
Yeah.
And if you start looking at labels on boxes, you'll start to see our logo a lot. But most people probably think it's Tetra Pak, which is a packaging company, which we're not. We're a software company.
Yeah. So you're a hidden giant behind the sort of the e-commerce and logistics.
Yes, very much so. And the business has actually been around a long time. There's a massive amount of packages go through our platforms at very high speeds. We average about 180 millisecond response times, which is pretty punchy.
Yeah.
At massive volumes. We don't tend to talk about those volumes too much. Obviously, the recent period's been fascinating as the world's turned to e-commerce. We've seen all of our hard work of getting technology in great shape, elastically scaling, just pay off. We've seen the volumes we would see Cyber Monday, Black Friday week, we've seen sustained since March.
Wow.
Which is, it's crazy, but having done the work as a technologist, it's kind of cool because it's like, just more scale.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah. And so how did you get into technology yourself then and lead into sort of this passion for solving challenges, I guess?
Yeah, I was rubbish at school. I really was. I'm not very good if someone says, read chapter 2 and 3 of the book and then we'll test you on it. I'm a bit like, why can't I read all the book?
Yeah.
And I have awful writing because of a dominant side of the brain. And I was struggling to work out what I wanted to do once I was thinking about university. I really wanted to be a marine biologist, but realized that the amount of academia required to achieve that was never going to work. So my desire to live on a boat and look at sharks and things all day was never going to happen. So I landed on technology because it was exploding at that time. And it seemed fun. And very quickly, I did a degree that was mainly programming. Lots of things that today are abstract, and it is fascinating to see the change. So we did lambda calculus, which is writing computer programs with mathematical symbols, and we did things that were theoretical and would never be used in the real world, like functional programming. Obviously, Scala is now a major thing. I got lucky. I was very lucky. My course had the 2 Peach placements were with Procter & Gamble. I studied in Newcastle, and I was very lucky enough to be selected for one of the placements. And very quickly, they gave me business problems to solve, And they realized I was an average coder, but I seemed to know what to do with the problems. So they empowered me very heavily, which really taught me something that stayed with me forever, which is value is everything. So
Yeah.
why are you doing this and how do you get there is everything. Everything else around it is noise. And they have an incredible culture. They're an insanely successful business that try and keep a lot of their success hidden. But it taught me very early in the foundation as I was still studying that kind of everything's about what the outcome is and be very clear on the outcome and go after it. And from that, I did some really good things. I switched to being permanent employee or full-time employee, part-time studying, which in my it would have been early, I'd be 2021. I wasn't shy of the odd beer or party.
Yeah.
I'd be like, dancing in the middle of the night. I learned all about sleep deprivation quite quickly,
Yeah.
but still enjoyed it. And there was not too many. There was a few times where I was coming back from a night out, kind of 2 hours kip, iron a shirt, get on a plane somewhere. But it really taught me a lot of work. Going full time really taught me. I learned a lot about how to get things done with some amazing people.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to move. My girlfriend at the time, who I'm still with, said, "Look, there's no jobs for me." She studied psychology. There's no jobs for me here. We need to go to London from Newcastle. So I went to London and said, "Right, I've got this amazing experience. I'm going to be able to get a job really easily." And no one believed me. People were like, "No, you didn't. No, you didn't." And I think that culture's changed now.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I think it has, and I think people are taken on merit, not kind of time.
Yeah.
Which we hire on that a lot. And so I ended up bumping into, through an interview process, someone phoned me and said, "Oh, well, you might want to talk to this guy. It sounds a bit of a weird opportunity." And I met a guy who ran the largest non-banking insolvency practice in the UK. So in accountancy, in PricewaterhouseCoopers, they're the people that when your company's broken, they come in and sort it out, do the administration or whatever else. And they were in they'd had boom times, and he had 8 partners who were very senior in PricewaterhouseCoopers at the time. And they said, "We don't know what to do. We've got a company technology department who can't really help us, and we need better technology. It's a recession, and that's okay because that means we're not too busy, which means we can fix ourselves for the next boom." Sorry, it was booming. For the next recession, we want to get ready because then we'll be very busy. So I joined them, and it was quite intimidating because you've got these, pretty heavy duty humans who are used to telling larger rooms of people life-changing events. And I quickly realized the trick of Procter and Gamble, which was it's all about what we're trying to achieve. So I set about my kind of 8-week plan of what are we trying to do here, and realized I wasn't going to get it right in 8 weeks, and I needed to talk to more people. And the more they asked me, "Why do you need more time?" the more I got confident about knowing things that they didn't know about their business, and realized because I was laser focused on what the problem was, not everything else, I could figure out what the problem was. And when I described it to them all, there was like half of them were like, "That's not the problem," because that was fear. And the other half said, "Yes, that's the problem." Luckily, we all agreed eventually that was the problem. So from there, I went from a kind of wandering around going, "Please hire me. I'm good at my job." I found these guys and had an amazing time. We transformed that business. We launched some ventures. And then my girlfriend, who I'm still with, again said, "If we don't go and see the world now, we won't."
Yeah.
You're getting sucked into the world of business, and you're becoming quite annoying. We lived on Shoreditch High Street, and again, I wasn't a stranger to going out and dancing in the middle of the night. But I'd learned a lot, and Procter and Gamble PricewaterhouseCoopers really helped me. They said, "Look, we really value you. We're going to help you out." So I spent 18 months being paid my benefits effectively to travel around the world. And I'd worked incredibly hard for them for a few years, and was very lucky to go away and be able to really experience a lot of the world. I saw the world's 3 embalmed communist leaders, climbed mountains, all kinds of fun things, surfed a lot. And it really changed me. So when I came back into the world of work, the kind of logical, well, the testosterone filled, I'm going to kill the world, was tempered a little bit more with, I want to do things that really excite me and interest me.
Yeah.
So then I did a contract, which was kind of in the media space, which was kind of fun. And it was because my sister worked in the same company, and they were trying to solve all the problem that it was in a company called EMAP that had 116 magazines. And they were trying to change the technology that the creative teams use to publish magazines to make it efficient. And my sister was an art director for many, many years, and she was working there. And she was telling me, this is so frustrating. They don't understand what we're trying to do. So I said, hey, I'm good at working things out. So I taught my way into a contract role and helped them get there. It was quite fun because at the time, now you'd think it was crazy, but they were trying to give creative people on magazines PCs, for example, that just can't do the job rather than Macs. They were trying, just craziness. And then from there, I probably made the big mistake I made in my career. I took a job I wasn't sure about, in an environment I wasn't sure about. And if there's one thing it taught me you've got to be excited about what you're going to do. You've got to be nervous enough that there's got to be enough fear that it's a bit scary, because that's why it's new. But I wasn't excited. It was like a functional job, and it was, and I think I spent 2.5 years there, and I really didn't enjoy it. I met some people who were still great friends of mine, but I really didn't enjoy that experience, because no one wanted to solve the real problem. People wanted to dance around each other. There was no courage and bravery or fun. It was just function, and it really taught me a lot to be to learn a lot more about who and how I'll be working. And it made me really, anyone who's thinking about their jobs today or their first job, it's really important that chemistry is there and that you feel connected, excited. There's a brilliant video on YouTube. There's a guy, and he talks about the smell of the place. It's at the World Economic Forum, how you walk in somewhere and you sense it. I'm a believer that that's generally true, what you sense and what you feel. And it's because there's so many things you take in. And there, I didn't, it was all negative, but I just took it anyway. And so after about 2.5 years or 2 years, I forget, I sat one day and said, what would be really hard and fun, and what would be difficult? Because I felt bored and unchallenged. And I decided management consulting sounded really fun and hard. So in a fit of frustration one afternoon, I sat at my desk feeling like a naughty boy, and I applied for a job in what was the award-winning management consultancy. Now I knew, and whilst I saved Procter & Gamble millions of pounds and transformed their business and did brilliant outcomes for them, I didn't get a high at first. I didn't even get a 2-1. I got a 2-2 by 1%, probably based on my attitude at the time. Yeah. So I knew that the top tier management consultancies would say, well, you haven't got a first from Oxford or Cambridge. And actually I knew that wasn't the environment for me, because I knew that kind of intellectual elitism isn't where I thrive, and it doesn't work for me. And actually it doesn't work that much anyway. The world's shown that, so I got very excited by the fact that PA, after 2 days, phoned me and said, thanks for your applying for the job. We'd love you to come join, have an interview. And I went to meet them and walked in, and the smell of the place was amazing. I was like, these are the people. I like these people. And the chap that first interviewed me is someone I still know. And he told me afterwards, I knew you were smart and I knew you could do it, but I didn't know whether you were serious. And so he was brutal, and it was such fun. I walked out excited. So I quickly joined the business via a 3.5 week surf trip in Panama. So I turned up really tanned, but I'd grown a beard to protect myself from the sun, with a ridiculous tan line, and really skinny. And they were a bit like, are you that guy? Are you that guy that we saw? And day 4, I got a call. I was kind of sitting there going, right, I'm on the bench. I'm a management consultant. I'm not really sure what that means. I've done a couple of days training. They said, right, we've got a turnaround project. We want you to go and turn around, join a team to turn around a company. Someone's going to call you. And this chap phoned me, someone I know really well, a guy called Rod Carr. He's quite well known in the tech space. And he just, who's a utilities expert, and downloaded a massive amount of information in a very heavy Scottish accent. And I was like, right, I'll see you in heaven then tomorrow. And really quickly was intimidated and crazily intimidated, didn't sleep, turned up and was like, I'm now meant to do turnaround. I don't know what that means, really. I think I probably think I do, but I know in my heart, I was terrified. I was genuinely terrified. It's one of my few times in my working life, I was genuinely like, I'm really in deep here. And turned up and listened a lot and asked a bunch of questions. And guess what? It was about what problem are you trying to solve? Where's the value and why is the problems? So we got stuck in, and I had an amazing time at PA. We did a whole bunch of stuff. That company was Europe's largest startup at the time, London Clearing House. And then I got a call saying, would you go to Poole and Dorset? I was just coming back from Paris with the Clearing House. Looking forward to actually a couple of days at home, just catching up with work. And one of the partners said, will you go to Poole? There's this company called Fitness First. I said, yeah, I've seen gyms. And first of all, I worked out I needed to be there at 7 or 8 in the morning, which meant I had to leave in the middle of the night. First of all, I had to get a map. It was like, where's Poole? I'd never heard of it. And then the next thing was to think about what the problem was. And I literally got on the train thinking, a fitness company, how hard can it be? Yeah. And how big can it be and how hard can it be? I walked in and the CFO briefed me, and she's, it was a big business. It was a 650 million pound turnover business making 150 million pounds profit, growing like crazy in 21 countries. And they tried to build a generic system. Now, every system that's ever been built in the history of humanity that has the word generic in has failed, because it doesn't work that way. The world's learned, build a bit, add it on, MVP plus, go, and they didn't know what to do. So I got absorbed in Fitness First, and it was a mixture of the team there, and I brought in some people from PA who had some really specific hardcore skills, and just lived and breathed it. And then eventually joined on staff, which you can imagine PA were delighted with.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
But we continued to spend quite a lot of money with them, so I think it was okay in the end. And I still have a lot of love for PA. They're a brilliant business. But joined because, it was, would you like to be the CIO of a pre-IPO business that's really exciting? Oh, by the way, it's on the beach. Yeah. They got it. So I joined Fitness First. We did an amazing job. I had a team. This was 12 years ago, something like that, 10 years ago. And we were doing daily releases back then, or semi-daily releases. We were doing we did a lot with a few people, which was super exciting. And then we got the business ready for IPO. We did a lot and really tight. We managed to hire some incredible talent. Basically by saying, I'll pay you London wages, near London wages, but you can live on the beach. And people warmed to it. We did some great things. And then we prepared the business for an IPO. And unfortunately, 2 weeks before our IPO, the markets failed because after the global financial crisis, everyone was still very nervous. I think it was 2011 or 2012. And people got very nervous very quickly. Yeah. So they pulled the cornerstone investors, and because we were owned by private equity, we had a lot of debt. So we had to make some changes, which was fine. So I walked away from the business at that point, and then decided, okay, I want to do something hard again. So I was back. If you think about my path, I hadn't really been in the job market that much. So I was kind of going to people and saying, hey, I'm a CIO. And they were like, I've never heard of you. Where have you worked? And I'd tell them, oh, really? I didn't know that. Why have we never heard of you? I said, well, because I just do my job. And so I ended up taking a role at the Daily Mail Group, which is a fascinating business. It was so different to the other jobs I'd done. It's owned, quite a lot of the stock is owned by the founding family. Lord Rothermere is still very heavily involved in it and very passionate about it. It's got iconic names like the Daily Mail, Metro. We ran the operations for the Evening Standard and the Independent. It has Mail Online. They would describe the gorilla in the digital jungle, and a crazy culture. I learned about this thing called church and state, where there's two mindsets in the business: editorial, and you can argue which is which, but editorial business who create the content, who have to be without constraint in what they write. So you can't not write about Marks and Spencer's if it's the right thing to write about, because they're an advertiser with you. You would never do anything. And then, at the other side of the business, trying to sell advertising and then monetize with marketing and operations. And they had all the businesses I've ever worked in have had really bad technology problems, and we fixed them. And the thing that I would say that is a huge learning for me is get brilliant basics in place. Make the basics rock solid and brilliant. Get a clear plan of where you're going, back to value, and go after it. And at the Mail, that was tough because it was hugely operationally geared, really tough environment, like tough people. And some incredible teams. I mean, people who are really, really talented. And I know there's always debate about what they write in their newspapers. I have no comment on that. What I would say is they're probably one of the most influential editorial teams on the planet. They affect change. For good or bad is the debate, but they affect change. So it was really interesting because, first of all, I had to create stability, and that took about a year, and that was hard. Once we created stability, we were able to change the nature of the conversation with everybody around us, with the marketing team who we transformed, with the advertising team who completely changed the way they work, the editorial team who started to really trust us to the point where I'd have conversations which was not too far. Well, it was exactly like, we want you to do this, but don't tell them. I'm like, I am them as well as you. But it was an amazing time, and it was very hard work, and I learned so much more about how to influence people, because Fitness First, we were all charging as a tribe, 12,000 people towards the same things. The Mail was so different, and I really learned about, you can't hit people over the head with a logical hammer all day and expect them to care. You've got to let people tell you their fears when they're ready. You've got to sometimes be patient for everybody to be ready to tell you their fears together. Sometimes what is right isn't right for everybody, and they're not going to let it happen because they're just not sure. And you've got to find the way to let them be sure. But you probably represent fear more than anything else. So I learned more about being softer, more helping people, being more influencing through different ways, rather than just going, I'm clever, let's do this, which was pretty much my previous single trick. Work harder, hit you harder with a logical hammer. And from there, I left the Mail having achieved it, and I really felt very proud of what we'd done. Then I took a little bit of time out. I've got a young family. We spent a bunch of time together, went fishing, went surfing, went on holidays. And then I took on a contract to an interim role to help a business called Collinson Group that no one's ever heard of, but people have heard of Priority Pass in airports, or they've heard of Columbus Insurance. It's a privately held company, and they keep themselves to themselves very much. And their biggest business, Priority Pass, was trying to deliver their biggest ever project, which was massive, and it's one of the biggest things MasterCard have ever done with their top customers. And they'd gone a bit awry. So I joined to get some brilliant basics in place, turn it around, get everybody on the same, over communicate. Something that I do in every job is endlessly over communicate. A very bright man who's I respect him endlessly, said to me, if you go to bed every day thinking you've over communicated, you might have done enough, but probably not. That's something that playbook of always over communicating, being helpful with people. I brought that to Collinson. It was really good because we built a really good team, some of which I work with now at MetaPack, and really got things moving. And interestingly, I have a collection of folks who I've worked with at the Mail who work at MetaPack, and because they're people that I have a lot of respect for. and at Collinson, we achieved what they said was impossible. You know, the owner said, we're just not going to do it. Let's prepare our script to talk. And we did it, and we did it well and beautifully. And then we set up, and then I left there, and I did a few things that were fun, and then decided I really want to find an interesting challenge. And someone phoned me about MetaPack as an interim job. And I said, yeah, I've got some other permanent jobs. And then I started to learn about it, and I phoned a couple of people in private equity and said, oh, it should be amazing, but they've never delivered on their promise, which was more than enough for me. I went and met them. I met the founder, Patrick, who's he's just an amazing human. I have endless love for him. He knows that. And realized there were 2 or 3 steps away from something incredible. So I joined as an interim. Then we were selling the business. So I stabilized the business, got brilliant basics in place, over communicated a lot, got the strategy clear. Then part of the sale process, we met stamps.com, who people in the UK won't have heard of. They're one of the original internet companies based in California. And they bought the business rather than private equity or all these other suitors. And I met them and instantly fell in love with them. And was like, I want to work with you forever because you're amazing people. My boss he's one of the best product guys I've ever met. He's incredibly sharp. He was super clear. It was like, I think I know where we need to go. And I said, I think that's our thing. Here's a better thing. And we talked about our business model. And we said, okay, let's do this. So I joined really permanently, really excited. So I feel like through my journeys, I've had some great homes, some challenging homes. Fitness First was certainly somewhere I felt really in love with. The Mail, I kind of just enjoyed, but it was hard. And I feel like MetaPack, I'm now somewhere where all my tricks, and anyone who knows me knows I've got about 4 tricks. Get brilliant basics in place, over communicate constantly about everything, be candid in it, get great people around you with amazing mindsets who want to do great things together, but not heroes, and give talent a chance, always give talent a chance, and a great strategy that everybody knows. And then you can go do it. So that's my journey. Probably quite a long ramble, but hopefully.
But super relevant. You know, when you think about and the bits I really enjoyed, you know, university is important, education is important, but actually experience and understanding that if you can get value and understand what value is and the why, you know, that is going to help you through multiple.
It's everything. It's absolutely everything. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
If you go to a company and you can't identify it, it's probably not the right company.
Yeah.
And there's so many companies who don't have it. I've done some strategy consulting when I've had breaks, and it's so amazing. You go in and say, why are you here? And the companies that are the best in the world, they have dynamic competitive advantage. And what I mean by that is they know how to win in their way, but they constantly change how they win. They're not a one-hit product. You know, Nike's the perfect example. Their competitive advantage is marketing and branding. They are brilliant at it, and they constantly win by always reinventing. But it's the same tricks, just with different. You know, it's Air Max, it's Jordan, it's, you know, ACG, it's whatever it is. They're just constantly doing it, and then they also know when they're not winning. So they got into snowboarding and were like, meh. They tried surfing. They're like, this isn't going to work. Surfers don't like us. But they get out. And to me, if you can find the company with the DNA of that, they normally have people with a great mindset, because you have to have that to get there.
Yeah. Again, I completely agree with you. So then, thinking around technology, you know, and because you've had such a varied experience that you've probably seen the complete array of tech stacks of environments, and I fully imagine you're thinking, you know, we were talking earlier around how for you to do your thinking, you'll go fishing and actually just have time to think and strategize. And so during those times, when you're thinking about the future for MetaPack or technology, where do you see technology going? What excites you about the future of technology?
So there's 2 horizons, one of which is now and is very super easy, accessible. And then the second one is emerging very, very quickly. So the one that I guess day to day for me that I just spend most of my time obsessed with is getting massive value from data. And by massive value, what are the business questions I can ask of data? How can I dynamically ask them? And how can I then automatically put that into our platforms? So as I get more data, we have huge liquidity. We get like 6,000 tracking events a second. How do I get that and constantly get the insight from that and then build that into this permanently refreshing loop? Now, the technology these days, depending on your flavor, whether it's Google or Amazon, I won't talk about Microsoft, so I don't know anything about it, and I think it's principally for children. I say that lightly, but I think it's not too far off. In the Amazon stack, you've got SageMaker, you've got all the things that just bring this together and make it possible. Is it perfect? No. Like everything Amazon, it's a bit complicated. But the knitting technology these days is just knitting.
Yeah.
If you know the business questions through doing the data science work to get to confidence, the knitting makes it super possible. So that is really exciting because you can mechanize the most incredible insight. What used to be the thing that would win you 6 months competitive advantage, you can constantly change. That's I really do genuinely get very, very excited about. And then the second piece in technology is the thing that I probably have. I'm probably a bit too old and a bit too set in my ways to, or I've lost a little bit of bravery maybe to really change my career direction and go after automation. It will change the world more than the internet, both from a technology and a social perspective. It will be unrecognizable in 10 years from where we are today. It is, and it's a brilliant mixture of data style problems, really complex technology, and physical environments. How do you get that right? And the simple, there's some brilliant writing about it that talks about the horizons and how they play out. That to me really excites me and really interests me. And maybe in time, no time soon, but maybe that's where I end up with my time. And it comes from a really funny place for me that my dad, who is a classic engineer, was part of the team that were building some of the first industrial robots in the world, which I gave no thought to at the time. The fact that I would go to his workplace at the weekend and there was a mixture of like old engineering drawing tables with coffee stained mugs and then these super high tech things at the end of the room or in the workshop. And now I've started to realize it started a fire in me that really excited me. So that to me is that blending and the impact. And the thing that if I could achieve one minor thing, it would be to find ways to help limit the social impact of automation in a useful way, because it's not all flowers and honey. There's some pretty dark things around. If you can get a machine for $400,000 that can make, I think it's 150 customized burgers an hour. What does that mean for a restaurant and the staff, etc.? So I think it's exciting, but it's dangerous. So that would be for me. And that's where the real action is insight out of data. Actionable insight out of data, because the technology to make it happen, the knitting, is getting easier and easier. And the engineers we have are some of the recent graduates are just, they don't understand 90% of the stuff I've filled my brain with over the years. They don't even care about it, and they are unemotional about technology. The days of, but we love this, no one cares. It's like, drop it in a heartbeat. Sorry, you want ECS or EKS? ECS, great, don't care, I'm done. Right, that's what we're going to use, off we go. So I think that's so exciting because you can cover the ground quickly and deliver a lot very quickly. And when you twin that with automation as a set of horizons, it's very, very exciting.
Well, and I couldn't agree with you more, especially around, so Industry 4.0, which is the whole automation piece and Internet of Things and connected homes. And you are right, there's a dark side to it when you think about the social economic impacts, unless graduates especially keep evolving their thinking. And if we can move with the times and say, well, the days of the developer, for example, I think artificial intelligence one day will probably make the role of a normal developer redundant because technology will evolve. But the job spec will then move on, because to say, well, technology actually becomes a thinking sport and a strategic sport, and what do we do with this, and how do we maximize it? And Ben, back to your earlier comment about value, AI automation will never understand the why. That's the
Yes.
human aspect of it. So I agree with you. I share a passion there. When I look at Industry 4.0 and a lot of things around electrical vehicles and drones, and how is this going to change the landscape moving forward?
Yeah.
And I
And
think
I think it comes back. It brings a picture together. If you're working in a company where, as that engineering role and the context of it changes, engineers are kings in companies.
yeah,
Engineering is king, and certainly in my company, it's an unwritten law. You do not disturb engineering, not because they're prima donnas. They're actually all delightful humans, but they're creating value. And context switching is really difficult when you're thinking hard. But for me, that whole will this environment help me be the best I can be is super exciting.
yeah,
Because if you walk into somewhere, or you looking for the DNA of that, will this help me really use my brain to the best of my ability and my skills? Will it challenge me to develop new thinking, new skills? That's really exciting, because it doesn't, you almost kind of go, if you make golf balls or you're on the cutting edge of this, if that helps me do that, that's the right place to be.
yeah,
Because I think people get very turned on by big tech, and big tech's, it's a machine. It chews up engineers and just drops them out. I think the average tenure in Amazon is incredibly low because of that. So actually saying there's a whole bunch of companies that have got these amazing dynamics that you can almost go, oh, what you do is what you do. Do you know what it is, what you want to do? Are you going to tell me it? You're going to give me the environment to expand and help you.
yeah,
It's super powerful, because it changes the context from, well, I haven't got a job at Facebook, so what's next, to actually there's so many, and the accessibility these days of being pretty good at tech is much lower and getting lower and lower and lower. And there's so many, a big phrase we use a lot is steal with pride. Um, if you're doing APIs, make them look like Stripe. They have the best they're the best at it. So don't bother trying to do anything else. Just make it feel like them.
yeah,
If you do it, it's very simple.
yeah, yeah. And again, I totally agree with you that the cult. I suppose I'd summarize that, especially for the graduates, that the culture of the business. What you said when earlier on, that you can smell when you walk into a business, you can smell it, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter whether you are, big tech, Amazon, Facebook, or Google, or whether you're a startup that has a mission. It's down to your connection with the business, and you will learn
Yeah.
that and get that very, very.
Work with like-minded people. It doesn't have to be a lot of people to be like-minded. They're the people you'll interact with on a regular basis. And find like-minded people. Avoid heroes. Too many heroes is a problem. The modern engineering culture doesn't need heroes. It needs people who are not anti-heroes.
Yeah.
Everyone, we have a fantastic thing. We've interviewed a number of people and said, one guy said to me, I want to be your best developer. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not looking for my best developer. I'm looking for people to join our engineering teams. It's about being humble enough not to want to be the best and try and be the best together.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it's important. And how it's some companies encourage, you can tell through the conversation, if anyone's talking to a new company, ask the questions about the culture, ask the questions about how decisions are made, who makes the decisions and how. And often, if empowerment isn't clear, it might not work.
Yeah. No, again, and it sounds like you're creating this fantastic culture there, because that is the collaboration approach I'm a massive fan of as well.
Yeah. I don't subscribe to the fact as CTO I have to know everything. That's crazy. The days of CTO as head of art, who's the architect, and the chief developer are long gone. My head of architecture knows more than anybody about where our company's going and how it fits together. And that's okay. We just ask him. It's okay. We're okay with that. That's the right thing. That's amazing. Lots of my engineers will know a lot more about the business than I do, but that's okay, because they're the experts. My job is to help them be the best they can be.
Well, and there's a great expression, isn't it? That managers will always hire people better, worse than them to keep their place. Leaders will hire people better than them.
Yeah.
Because of fear of,
You've got a higher bet. Yeah. Make yourself redundant. That's okay.
Yeah, 100%. So Now thinking about your words of wisdom, because it's been great to hear your story, and I totally agree with you around the emerging technology piece and data. Data is huge. I mean, it's where we spend majority of our time, now speaking and being thought leaders, because I think it feeds everything else from cyber security all the way through to development
Yeah.
through cloud infrastructure. But as a graduate about to enter the job market, what few words of wisdom? We've talked about culture, we've talked about understand the value, the why, but is there any other little words of wisdom you would give them for looking at their first jobs?
Yeah, I would think about the smell of the place, and is this somewhere? Are these like-minded people similar to me? Um, you have to find the right mix of being humble enough to be new, but being candid enough to be curious. So nobody needs someone to break down all the doors. You need someone to come and make it happen while you learn who you are. You're not going to know who you are in a workplace immediately.
Yeah,
So be curious and humble to really learn and understand. But equally, it's okay to be candid at the right times. It's okay to ask the question in the interview of, could you describe your culture to me? What's a good decision feel like in your company?
yeah,
um, you know and also, I think, be really open to lots of different experiences. You don't have to be in an industry, you don't have to be in a certain time, size, or shape of business. You don't have to um, uh, you know win all the time. You have to learn and improve. And let the things I learned was, you're very graduates are bright, and they've used their brain a lot more than a lot of people will in jobs at times, because of the nature of the different thinking. So really make sure you're challenged. If you're not challenged, really think, is this right? Understand You should understand more about the company's direction than just, is it good or not? Who's behind it? Who funds it? Where's the money? And you can ask that question, and or you can find it on the internet. If it's publicly traded, you can find it out. If you can't, you should ask that question and understand, okay, if it's a startup, how much funding have you got and how long is it likely to last? What's your burn rate?
yeah,
Because if your burn rate is £1 million a month and you've got £3 million funding, this might not be for me. Don't try and do everything at once. If you're bored, figure out, is it the job or is it where you're at? Because if it's where you're at, it might be that actually the job's too much to you and you need stimulus outside of work. Um, Hours don't count, output counts. It's my really important point. It's all about output.
yeah,
You don't need to be working 16 hours a day. I've done it for years. It's not particularly pleasant, and you're not very productive. So being very focused and very productive is very useful for the company, and it's also very attractive to those around you, because if the company has the right culture, it happens.
yeah,
And then the last thing I'd say is, if something's not right, find the way to respectfully call it out.
yeah,
Don't just admire a problem,
yeah,
because often people will admire problems and do nothing about it. And if they admire it too long and it's not changing and you're worried, go and do something else. In the start of your career, it's okay to fight, to ride a few horses and see what works. I think it's okay. Later on, as life changes and responsibility changes and the choices are harder or difficult, until you get old like me, and then they get slightly more different. But I would definitely, be curious in what you do.
yeah, yeah. And again, thank you. I think there's some really, really good words of wisdom there, and it's life is short, isn't it? So always
It's
think
not a
about.
rehearsal. Believe it or not, it's not a rehearsal.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. We only get one of them. So, oh, great. Well, Steve, thank you. That has been really, really interesting, and great to hear, as I say, your career trajectory, but actually the thoughts around how that relates to the graduates, STEM graduates out there who are listening to the podcast, watching it. It's all of this real life advice, thoughts. It's about getting a really blended approach of what suits you. And I think for me, the biggest takeaway, culture. smell the office that you're about to walk into. That's a great takeaway. I think I'm going to use that myself in a number of the career advice I give. And yeah, respectfully be able to challenge the norm, I guess, is the things that people want. So that's another episode. Steve, thank you again. Really
Thank you.
time.
Fun.
And to everyone listening, the podcast is going to be on our YouTube channel, on Spotify, and on the careers portals of the universities we're partnered with. So here's to another episode, and thank you, everybody.